What if the moment the whole town laughs at you becomes the moment that changes your life forever? The morning was cold in the Montana mountains when the voice thundered through the cabin doorway. Eliza's eyes snapped open, her heart pounding. "Eliza, get yourself out here, girl." Her father stood in the doorframe, cross-armed, his face carved with the same disappointment she had seen her whole life. Dawn had barely touched the snowy peaks, but he was already in a foul mood. "Jedi Crane's hosting a gathering today," he said in a voice flat as river rock. "Every trapper, hunter, and mountain man within 40 miles will be there. He's got 7 daughters, and any man worthy can pick himself a wife." He spat into the dirt outside, then turned his hard eyes on her. "You'll go with your sisters. Stand with them, even though no man in these mountains would burden himself with you." His lip curled. "But you'll go anyway, so folks don't say I kept you hidden like some shameful secret." The words hit her like stones in still water, each one sinking deep into her chest. Eliza pushed herself up from her thin quilt. She wished she could disappear into the mountain itself, but her father's cold stare allowed no softness. "Well, don't just stand there gawking," he snapped. "The water barrels are near empty. Get to the creek. Bring back onions, too. Might as well be useful since no man will ever want you." He walked out, taking every bit of warmth with him. Eliza dressed quietly in her worn buckskin dress. The leather was stretched tight across her shoulders. Her wool shawl was frayed from years of mending. She wrapped it around herself and stepped into the cold morning. The settlement was waking up. Horses in the corral, smoke rising from morning fires, men calling to each other. And with those voices came the whispers she knew too well. "There goes big Eliza. Poor girl. She has no chance at Crane's gathering. No mountain man wants a burden like her." She kept her eyes fixed on the rocky path. The wooden bucket bumped against her leg. If she could just reach the creek fast enough. If she could just avoid the staring. A small cry made her stop. Near the trading post, a little girl sat in the dirt, clutching her arm, tears streaking her face. People walked past without stopping. Eliza hesitated. She knew what the whispers would say if she knelt in the open, but her feet moved anyway. She crouched beside the girl. Her voice was soft as spring snow. "Hush now. Let me see." The child lifted her scraped elbow. Eliza tore a small strip from her already mended shawl and cleaned the wound. "You're brave," she whispered. "This will heal just fine." The girl sniffled, then smiled. "Thank you, miss." Eliza smiled back, though her own eyes burned. She helped the child up and watched her run off. Across the path, a group of women near the store whispered loudly. "Always fussing over strays, that one. Too tender for these mountains." Their laughter followed her like smoke. Eliza wrapped her shawl tighter and hurried away. The child's smile had warmed her, but it wasn't enough to shield her from the stares. When she reached the creek, several young women were already there, dresses clean, hair braided with ribbon, practicing their smiles for the gathering. Eliza stayed far from them, dipping her bucket into the cold water. Her reflection rippled on the surface, a round face, tired eyes, a woman who never seemed to fit anywhere. Her father's words echoed in her chest. "No man would burden himself with you." The bucket filled. She lifted it carefully, hoping the day would pass quickly. But it only grew worse. By the time she reached the settlement square with her sisters, the gathering had already begun. Men bartered pelts. Children ran between wagons. Families buzzed with excitement. Eliza tried to blend in. She never could. "Look!" a young trapper shouted. "Big Eliza's here!" 3 men leaned against a wagon, grinning wide. "Dance for us, Eliza." "Show us how light you are on your feet." "You'll crack the ground if you do." Laughter erupted all around them. Women covered their mouths. Children pointed. Eliza froze. Heat rushed to her face. "Please," she whispered. "Leave me be." Quote. They circled closer, kicking up dust. "Come on now, Eliza," one man jeered, clapping in a rhythm. "Give us a show." Her foot snagged on her skirt. She stumbled forward. The basket of onions tipped, spilling everything into the dirt. The crowd roared. Children giggled. Men slapped their knees. Even mothers shook their heads. Eliza dropped to her knees, gathering the scattered onions with shaking hands. Tears blurred her vision. "Why was I born this way?" she whispered. Their laughter stabbed at her from every side. She grabbed the last onion, pulled her shawl over her face, and hurried away. She slipped behind a supply wagon where no one could see her and pressed her hands to her eyes. "Is there any place in this world for me?" Her tears came hard, her shoulders shaking. The sounds of the crowd grew louder as more families arrived, all with daughters who were everything she wasn't. Pretty, graceful, wanted. And she, Eliza. She was only the girl everyone mocked. When the bell rang out across the valley, calling every unmarried woman forward, Eliza's heart sank. She wiped her face, forced herself to stand, and walked toward the platform where she would soon face the most humiliating moment of her life. What she didn't know was that a man in the crowd, a man the mountains whispered about, was already watching her, and her life was about to change forever. Eliza took her place at the far end of the platform beside her 6 stepsisters. They stood tall and confident in their clean dresses and braided hair. Eliza stood with her hands clasped, her blue dress pulled tight across her middle, her braid loose, her cheeks still red from crying. Whispers rippled through the crowd. She'll be left standing for sure. No one would burden himself with her. Why is she even up there? Eliza stared at the wooden planks beneath her feet. Her father's hard gaze burned into her from the crowd, forcing her to stay put. Jedediah Crane stepped onto the platform. His deep voice boomed across the valley. "By the custom of these mountains, these women stand ready. Any man who has proven himself worthy may choose a bride this day." Men pressed forward. Girls straightened their dresses. Mothers held their breath. Eliza felt the world shrinking around her. Then the crowd shifted. Heads turned. The noise quieted. A man stepped through the crowd, tall as a pine, broad as a logging ox, dressed in worn buckskin and furs. His beard was thick, his hair long, his eyes steady. Nathaniel, the mountain man. People whispered his name like a rumor. He lives alone in the high peaks. He survived 12 winters by himself. Man barely speaks. Jedediah Crane pointed at him. "You've earned the right to choose first." Nathaniel's jaw tightened. His deep voice carried across the crowd. "I came to trade pelts, not take a wife." Gasps shot through the gathering. Crane stepped closer. "Every man chooses today. That is the law." Nathaniel didn't blink. "I will not." A wave of whispers rushed through the crowd. Some men laughed under their breath. Others waited for a fight. Crane folded his arms. "Refuse this, and you shame every man here." Nathaniel remained still, calm as a stone. "My heart owes nothing to your customs." Quote. Crane looked furious. He swept his hand toward the women on the platform. "Even she stands here with courage," he called out. His finger pointed straight at Eliza. Her heart dropped. Every head turned. The crowd erupted in laughter. "She actually thinks someone will choose her. Look at her, poor thing. Mountain man, take her. She's been waiting her whole life." Eliza shook as the heat rushed to her cheeks. She kept her eyes down, tears stinging. She wished she could disappear. Crane stepped toward Nathaniel. "You see, even the one they all mock is braver than many men here. So what excuse remains?" Nathaniel's jaw worked. His gaze drifted across the line of women. One sister straightened proudly. Another fluttered her eyelashes. Then his eyes stopped. On Eliza. She didn't dare look up. Her shoulders trembled. Her tears fell onto the wooden boards. Silence spread across the gathering like a winter shadow. Crane's voice cut through the cold air. "Well, what do you say, mountain man?" Nathaniel inhaled slowly. Then, in a voice stronger than the crowd's cruel laughter, he said, "Her." The world went still. Somewhere a horse snorted. A child dropped a wooden toy. Even the wind seemed to stop. Then, "What?" He picked her? Out of all 7 daughters? People burst into wild laughter, louder than anything before. Eliza's breath froze in her chest. Her hands shook so hard she nearly dropped her shawl. Crane lifted his boot and stomped it on the platform. "So be it! Witness it!" "The mountain man has chosen Eliza." The mockery swelled around her like a storm. Eliza's father turned away, covering his face. That hurt her more than all the laughter. Nathaniel stepped off the platform and waited. He didn't laugh, didn't smile, didn't even look embarrassed. Eliza felt small, broken, worthless, but she stepped down anyway because she had no choice. People shouted as they walked through the crowd. "He'll regret this by winter. That girl will ruin him. Poor man, doomed now." Eliza kept her head down, tears falling onto the dirt. Nathaniel walked in complete silence beside her. No anger, no shame, only steady steps up the mountain trail. At his cabin, the world grew quiet. No more jeers, just the sound of the wind in the pines. Inside the cabin, Nathaniel lit the fire and set his rifle aside. He didn't speak a word to her. His silence wasn't sharp. It wasn't like her father's coldness. It was something different, something steady. Eliza sat near the hearth, hugging her shawl around her. The warmth from the fire couldn't reach the cold inside her chest. When she finally let her tears fall, the sound of them filled the small cabin. She cried quietly, shoulders shaking. She thought she ruined his life. She thought she had become a burden he never wanted. But in the shadows near the fire, Nathaniel watched the flames with a troubled look in his eyes. He didn't mock her. He didn't leave her. He didn't regret his choice. The mountain taught a man to choose with purpose, and Nathaniel had chosen. Days passed, and Eliza learned the rhythm of his quiet world. She gathered eggs from the hens. She swept the cabin. She tried baking cornbread, nervous and clumsy. Her first attempt burned black. Nathaniel ate it anyway, then nodded and said, "Not bad." Those 2 simple words warmed her like spring sunlight after a long winter. Little by little she learned. And little by little, Nathaniel's silence became something safe. Every evening he sat by the fire, turning over a silver pendant with the faded picture of a young woman inside. Eliza didn't ask. She could see the grief in his eyes. He carried pain, too, a pain he kept quiet. Sometimes she wondered why he really chose her. But one morning, when he helped her onto a horse, his hand steady at her back, he murmured in a soft voice, "I won't let you fall. I've got you." The words made her heart shake. Weeks later, he told her they had to return to the settlement for supplies. Fear knotted in her stomach. And when they arrived, the whispers began again. "She's still with him? He hasn't sent her back? Why would he keep her?" Eliza lowered her head, shame burning her cheeks. Then Nathaniel stopped right in the center of the square. Everyone stared. In a deep, steady voice that echoed off every building, he said, "She is my wife." Every whisper died. "You mocked her," he said. "But I chose her because I saw what you could not." His hand rested on her shoulder, strong, certain. For the first time in her life, Eliza lifted her chin. She looked at the trappers who once mocked her and spoke with a voice that trembled at first, then grew stronger. "You laughed when I fell, but today I will dance. Not for you, for myself." Nathaniel took her hand. The fiddler began to play. Nathaniel pulled her gently into the center of the square, and they danced, slow and steady. Her dress swayed. Her cheeks glowed. Her heart thumped hard with pride. The same square that once laughed at her now watched in stunned silence. Some even clapped. When the music faded, Nathaniel whispered near her ear, "I would choose you again, every time." Eliza's eyes filled with tears, but this time not from shame. From something warm, something bright. Hand in hand, they walked away from the crowd and back toward the mountains. Their story was only beginning. The trail back up the mountain felt different this time. The same trees, the same cold wind, the same rocky path, But Eliza felt something new growing inside her, a quiet strength, a warmth she had never known. Nathaniel walked beside her, steady and silent as always, but his hands stayed close to hers, brushing her knuckles now and then. Each touch felt like a promise. By the time they reached the cabin, dusk had settled over the peaks. A soft orange glow filled the sky, and the chimney smoke drifted gently upward. Inside, the fire warmed the room. Eliza wrapped her shawl around her shoulders and sat at the table while Nathaniel unpacked the supplies. She watched him move with calm purpose, quietly setting flour and coffee beans in their places. When he finally turned to her, she looked down quickly, unsure of what he saw in her now. "You spoke strong today," he said. Her eyes lifted slowly. "I was terrified." "I know," he said, "but you did it anyway. That's what makes it brave." His voice was steady, certain. Something inside her trembled at the gentleness she heard there. She didn't know what he wanted from her. She didn't know why he chose her, but for the first time, she wanted to ask. "Nathaniel, why me?" His brows drew together. He took a seat across from her, elbows resting on the table. The firelight softened his face. "When I came down to trade," he said, "I saw you helping that little girl with the scraped arm. No one else stopped. No one even cared." Eliza blinked. She hadn't known anyone had seen that. "You were kind when no one was watching," he continued. "You didn't do it to be seen or praised. You just did what was right." He looked at her as if studying something fragile but important. "That's the kind of woman a man can build a life with." Her breath caught. No one had ever spoken of her that way. Not her father, not her stepmother, not anyone in the settlement. "And when the crowd laughed at you," he added quietly, "you still stood there, trembling but standing. Strength doesn't always look fierce. Sometimes it looks like not running." Eliza felt tears gather in her eyes, but she didn't look away. "You chose me," she whispered. "Not because you had to?" Nathaniel shook his head. "I don't choose anything I don't intend to keep." The words warmed her more than the fire. For a moment they just sat there in the soft glow, the world outside fading into quiet mountain dark. Over the next days, something shifted between them. Small things, gentle things, moments that stitched a new life together. Nathaniel teaching her how to sharpen a knife on a river stone. Eliza stitching a tear in his buckskin coat while he watched her with quiet pride. Nathaniel leaving half his portion of cornbread on her plate when he thought she wasn't looking. Eliza brushing snow from his shoulders after he returned from checking the trap lines. Each small moment felt like a thread woven into something bigger. One night, a storm rolled over the peaks, rattling the cabin walls. Thunder shook the ground. Eliza sat by the fire, hugging her shawl, flinching at every crash. Nathaniel came down from the loft and sat beside her, close enough that she felt his warmth. "Storms can't harm this cabin," he said softly. "I built it to last." Eliza didn't answer. She stared into the flames, fear still lingering in her chest. Nathaniel hesitated, then rested his hand gently over hers. "You're safe here." Her breath trembled. She had heard those words before in her life, but never spoken like this. Never with such certainty. Never with such quiet strength behind them. And something inside her finally loosened. She leaned her head against his shoulder. Nathaniel didn't move away. He didn't stiffen. He simply let her rest there, his hand still holding hers. The storm crashed on, but for the first time the thunder didn't shake her. Weeks turned into months. Winter wrapped the mountains in deep snow, and the world outside the cabin grew white and silent. Inside, warmth grew, not just from the fire, but between them. They cooked meals together. They laughed quietly over burnt cornbread and crooked stitches. They shared stories, hers full of pain, his full of loss, and long winters alone. Little by little, their walls fell away. One morning, Eliza woke before sunrise. She stepped outside onto the porch, her breath turning to mist in the cold air. The valley spread below, untouched and beautiful. Nathaniel stepped out behind her, the morning light catching in his dark hair. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said. Eliza nodded, though she wasn't looking at the valley anymore. She was looking at him. He turned toward her, something warm in his eyes. "Eliza," he said quietly, "I don't say much. But I need you to hear this." Her heart beat fast. "You are not the burden they said you were," he said. "You are not the joke they made you. You are the strongest woman I've ever known." Eliza's throat tightened. "And if I had the chance to choose again," he said, "with the whole world watching, I'd choose you every time." A tear slipped down her cheek. Nathaniel reached out and brushed it away with his thumb. "Eliza," he murmured, "I love you." The words hit her like sunlight after years of winter, soft, warm, life-giving. Her breath shook as she whispered, "I love you too." Quote, Nathaniel leaned in, slow and careful, and kissed her, gentle at first, then deeper as she melted into him. The cold air around them faded. The mountains grew quiet. The whole world seemed to hold its breath. When they pulled apart, Eliza rested her forehead against his. She wasn't the girl everyone mocked anymore. She wasn't the burden. She wasn't the joke. She was loved. Deeply. Truly. Fiercely. And standing on that mountain porch, wrapped in Nathaniel's arms, Eliza finally understood the truth. The girl no one chose had become the woman one man chose with his whole heart. The woman who found strength in a place the world said she didn't belong. The woman who would never again bow her head in shame. She was home. She was his. And she was enough. Their story would live in the mountains, carried by the wind and whispered by the pines. The tale of the mountain man who saw worth where others saw none, and the woman who discovered her own strength in the arms of the man who chose her above all.